Today I'll be doing the Post Prime Colorado Clown Show. Deion Sanders' attitude toward college football is never going to work, in my opinion. Uh, since he's been at Colorado, he's brought in a total of 94 transfers, 53 the first time and 41 the second time. And he's made zero high school recruiting visits and never plans on making any. Uh, and 95% of the transfers that he brings in aren't any good. They're just leftovers from other teams that weren't good enough to get on the field there, so they're transferring. And uh, a lot of those transfers that he brings in are going to enter the portal again after 1 year, and a lot of them also only have 1 year left to play anyway. Um, and he brings in transfers and doesn't recruit because he doesn't want to have to do any player development. And you know why he does that? Because he doesn't know how to develop players. Because he's not a real football coach. And he's lost a lot of those transfers that he's brought in. Uh, and uh, mm, so on Colorado's roster, uh, mm, starting on the offensive side, they are in good shape at quarterback mm, with Shador Sanders coming back. He is a good passer. He's not a very good runner, but of course that wouldn't matter anyway because there's no way he could run with Colorado's horrible offensive line. But he had in 11 games last year, uh, 3,230 passing yards and 69.3% completion and 27 touchdown passes. And he averaged 7.5 yards a throw, which isn't great, but overall, he's a pretty good quarterback. I've seen that he's probably going to be a first round pick. Now, I don't really think he's that good, but he's good enough to where I think he could uh, play in the NFL. Uh, and I do like their wide receivers. They have Travis Hunter coming back, who is one of the best players in college football on both sides of the ball. Uh, he plays wide receiver and also plays cornerback. He's expected to be a first round pick. Uh, he played in 9 games last year only because of an injury. And he had in those 9 games 57 catches for 721 and 5 touchdowns, averaging 12.6 yards a catch. And they also returned Jimmy Horn, who had 58 catches for 567 and 6 touchdowns, averaging 9.8 a catch. And they bring in a transfer from Vanderbilt, but he's actually a good wide receiver. He's had in 25 games, well, no, actually 35 games, 150 catches, 2,037 yards, 21 touchdowns, and average 13.6 yards a catch. His name is Will Shepard. He's been a 3 year starter at wide receiver for Vanderbilt. But other than quarterback and wide receiver, there's nothing else good to say about Colorado. Their lines are uh, going to be horrible again. Their whole defense is horrible, and they have no run game, and they have no coach either. So at running back, they lose their only good running back from last season. His name's Dylan Edwards. He was a 4-star running back, and of course, if you looked at his numbers from last season, you wouldn't think he was that good. But that's because their offensive line was so horrible that you couldn't run very well there. But he scored four total touchdowns in the TCU game, and he's also a big loss at receiver because he had three receiving touchdowns in that game against TCU and had 36 total catches last year. Uh, and so they bring in a Ohio State leftover running back who had to transfer and join the clown show after Henderson decided to return to Ohio State, and they brought in Judkins, and he's an okay running back. Hayden is his name. But Derrick Henry couldn't run well if he had Colorado's offensive line, so he's not going to be able to run very much at all. And Colorado is going to be so bad on the offensive line, and they're not going to have any great running backs. So I don't know if they'll even really try much to run the ball this year. They were already so bad last year at rushing for under 70 yards a game, and I think they're going to be even worse than that this year. Their offensive line, they've tried to redo it, bringing in transfers, but I don't think it's going to work because the transfers that uh, they've brought in are from little teams. And then on defense, they ranked in the 100s everywhere last year. Uh, they ranked 121 in points allowed per game at 34.9, and they ranked 107 at stopping the run. At 176.4 rushing yards given up a game, and they ranked 124 at stopping the pass, giving up 276.9 passing yards a game, which is so horrible. And in total yards per game allowed, they were at 127, giving up 453.3. Uh, and their defensive line is going to be terrible again, probably the worst in the Power Four, and their linebacker position doesn't have any talent. They're going to be horrible there again. They do have two good players in the secondary, but that's it. They've got Travis Hunter at corner. He had in 9 games 31 tackles and three interceptions and five pass breakups. And then they've got at safety Deion Sanders' other son, Shiloh Sanders, who had 67 tackles and four forced fumbles and three pass breakups and a pick six and a fumble recovery. I think he'll probably play in the NFL, but overall, this defense is going to be horrible again. And Colorado does return six starters on the defense, but other than those two uh, defensive backs, those starters that they return are horrible. And they returned 72% of their production from last season, but most of that 72% of production that they return is trash. And then on special teams, they are going to be solid there, I think. They've got both coming back. But now I'll move on to the predictions. So they start the year against North Dakota State, and I know North Dakota State is one of the best FCS teams. And I saw the spread right now for this game is only 8 points. So this is supposed to be a close game, and I think it will be a close game. And I think North Dakota State has a decent chance to pull the upset on Colorado this year. And as funny as it would be if they did go into Colorado and pull the upset, I don't think it happens. I think Colorado gets a one-score win in this game. Uh, and then they play on the road at Nebraska. So when you look back at this game from last year, it doesn't really make sense because not only did Colorado beat Nebraska last year, they blew them out. And Nebraska, as bad as they were last season, wasn't as horrible as Colorado was. And this year, Nebraska is going to have a much better defense than Colorado is going to have, and uh, they're going to have a much better offensive line, and they're going to be much better at running the football. Now, Colorado may still have an advantage over them in the passing game, but I think Nebraska gets revenge on Colorado. Uh, so then they play on the road at Colorado State. So I was back and forth with my prediction for this game because you know uh, Colorado State took them to overtime last year, and now it's at Colorado State. But I am gonna pick Colorado because they are supposed to be better than Colorado State. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if Colorado State upset them. I do think it'll be really close again. And then they play Baylor. So Baylor is not going to be very good either. And this is a home game for Colorado, so I am going to pick them in this game. But I could see this one going either way, and I think it'll be really close. And really, what did it for me with this game is where it comes on the schedule. It's still in the month of September, and as bad as Colorado is going to be this year, they're going to be even worse later on in the year than they're going to be early in the year because of injuries that are going to start piling up because Colorado has no depth. Now, of course, there's no way to predict how many injuries the team is going to have, but you know that with football, every team is going to have at least a few injuries, even though it's not something that you want to see happen. At least you shouldn't want it to happen. Uh, and then they play on the road at Central Florida. I think this will be a loss. I actually think this could be a blowout. Gus Malzahn is a much better coach than Deion Sanders is, and I think he's building something over there for this season to maybe surprise this year. And then they play Kansas State. This will be a loss. Kansas State is a so much better coach team than Colorado is, and they have a much better roster. And actually, Kansas State is the one that got Colorado's only good running back from last year. So that will be an interesting thing with this one. And I think he'll do a lot on Colorado's defense in this game and I think it'll be a blowout. And then they play on the road at Arizona. So I know this was a close one last year, and I think it'll probably be pretty close again. And Arizona's quarterback though is really good also. And their secondary is much better than Colorado's is. And Arizona's lines of scrimmage may not be great, but they're going to be better than Colorado's are going to be. So I think Arizona wins this one. Mm-mm. And then they play Cincinnati. So Cincinnati may not be quite as bad as they were last year, but they're still going to be pretty bad. And this is at Colorado. So I think this will be a close one, but I think Colorado has enough to win this one. But wouldn't shock me if Cincinnati won it. Uh, and then on the road at Texas Tech. So I think this will be a loss. Not because I think Texas Tech is going to be a great team. I don't think they're going to be that good, but I think they're better than Colorado is, and it's on the road. But I do think this will be pretty close. And then Utah, uh, this will be a loss. Utah's coaching is an A plus, and Colorado's coaching is an F. If I was going to grade them, and then Utah's lines of scrimmage are an A at least, and Colorado's are an F. And Utah also has a good quarterback, Cameron Rising. I think this will be a blowout. Utah will score a whole lot of points, and they may not shut down Colorado completely, but Utah's defense is so much better than Colorado's to where this won't be close at all. They won't be able to keep up with Utah. Uh, and then on the road at Kansas, Colorado's defense won't be able to stop Kansas's offense. Kansas may score in the 50s in this game, and Colorado will probably score some, like they might score 30, but they won't be able to keep up. And then they end the year at home against Oklahoma State on a Friday. There's not going to be an upset happen here. Uh, mm, Oklahoma State, I think, will blow out Colorado. They have a much better roster, and their coaching would also be A plus, like Utah's. And so my final prediction for Colorado is 4-8 overall and 2-7 in the conference. And then after this season, Deion Sanders will leave, and all of the Coach Prime lovers can talk about how he took Colorado, who won one game the year before he got there, to two 4-win seasons, and that's all they'll ever be able to say about him as a football coach. But Colorado's going to be terrible again this year, and I can't wait to see it. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe, and I'll be back very soon.